yeah, the talk I think is relatively clear. Startups and politics join forces to tackle today's challenges. And I must say, and this is fair to say towards the audience, everything that you are about and your thesis and everything that you represent, it can be applied internationally, but your personal focus on Germany or on the DACH region, as we call it, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, but mostly in Germany, and you are a very present person as both a startup person and a political person. You are and have been an entrepreneur. You are Forbes Euro top 50 women in tech. You are a startup investor. We actually invested in startups together, Project A.
I'm actually LP in Project A.
You're one of the limited partners in Project A, so one of the people who give us the money so that we can invest in companies. Young global leader at the World Economic Forum. So a lot of stations like that, but there's more to this. You're really a very outspoken, active political person. Wrote a book about how this country can and should change in order to fit our times. And the first question that I would have for you is, you represent a lot of topics, and we named a few challenges that we have nowadays, like climate change and digitization and so on. But if you would have to prioritize very hard two of them, you would say these two are more important than any other of all the challenges that business and politics have nowadays. Which would be these two topics and why?
So I would say climate change is obviously above all, but I'll leave that to Anna Alex from Planetly and others speaking later, because it's a huge topic of itself. I would say it's education and digitalization. And to give you a few facts and figures, of 522 services the German state has to offer to its citizens, we have 14 online. And those 14 are not really working yet. So it's like a driving license. You were able to download an app two weeks ago, but now they took the app out of the App Store again.
And that is now after we are in COVID.
That is after Corona, yeah. So I think the digitalization across all industries, across politics, is the challenge. And not just because I think that we will have a better life in a digital age, but because others are just doing it so much better, and we're very much likely to fall behind. And you can take any study of worldwide competitiveness in this area, and Germany is just falling behind and behind every year. And countries like China, obviously, and the States are not only catching up. The States are already in the front, but China is just leapfrogging it. And so this is the one thing, and that leads me to the second, it's education. We are just not educating our kids for that world. And there's a study of the World Economic Forum saying that 65% of our primary school kids today will work in jobs that we don't yet know. And probably that will not be jobs that we're already teaching today. And so that we don't have digitalization in schools, that the curriculum is much too full, that we're not training our teachers, and that we don't really have the mindset that we want to enter this digital world, at least not in Germany, is, in my eyes, not fair to our children. Because what we're doing is we're protecting them from a world that we don't know enough. And this is something I'm trying to kind of enforce.
So if we don't know these jobs yet, how can we best prepare our kids? I mean, how would the curriculum have to change so that you can prepare them for such a future?
Not with teaching them knowledge all day, which they then have to put down on pieces of paper and then get a grade for it. Because the access to knowledge, I mean, I'm preaching to the baptized here, is not going to be the number one thing. It's going to be finding the right access to knowledge, differentiating fake news from real news, validating sources. That's the one thing. And the other thing is empathy, resilience, frustration, tolerance, team play. This is what's going to differentiate us from robots, not processing knowledge in a way or synthesizing something what we just read. And so schools are still set up for 100 years ago. They still look like 100 years ago, and the world around them has changed completely. And so I think it's time for an update.
So today here, this is like the digital industry, right?
Yeah. It's an easy audience for this topic.
And we will actually talk about that in more depth, but just quickly, because we just had elections in Germany. Now, there will soon be a new government. We don't know yet what it will be. No matter who it is, but what are, in regards to the two topics that you mentioned, digitalization and education, what is for each of them the one measurable, tangible result that you would say, we have to expect this from the next government in the next term, in the next 4 years? Otherwise, that was not a success.
Well, the first thing is we need a digitalization of the administration, of the public service, because the trust of citizens in the state increases tremendously if the state is modern. You can see that in Finland, Sweden, the Netherlands, US, in the sense of when it comes to digital services. And this is the #1 task, and that's very tangible. How many of these 522 services will be online by the end of the next 4 years?
So would you say a number? Would you say at least 200?
If I was a politician, what they have been saying 4 years ago, our Minister of Economics, he said, by 2021, Germany will have the most modern public service in the whole of Europe. Now it is 2021, and the thing in politics is you don't get asked again. And so if I was a politician, I would say, yeah, sure, we'll manage all 522. I think we have to look more closely, but the first thing we need, and that would be the second thing they have to get right, is an electronic ID.
Yeah.
It can't be that in Europe we connect into websites and platforms with Facebook, Apple and Google Connect, and there's no European ID which I can choose. And Verena was worth a try, didn't work. That we don't have an electronic Personalausweis is just not, I don't understand it. So an e-ID and the public service, as boring as it sounds, is the basis for everything else.
So we say that is, because my plan is actually to have this very talk in 4 years again.
Yes.
And then we will go through that and judge the current of the new government about that.
And for education, it is, we have a so-called Digitalpakt. It's now 6.5 billion euros for high-speed internet, devices, a little bit of system administration, and a little bit of software which we can use on those devices. And only 800 million of these 6.5 billion have actually reached schools, and that is post-corona. So after everyone knew we need this, we still haven't allocated more than 20% of this whole money. And
where is this process stuck? Are the schools not asking for it? Or
no, they are all asking for it, but we have a federal system. 16 federal countries are basically defining their own way of getting this money to the schools. And so if in 2024, when it actually ends, this Digitalpakt, only 30 or 40% of the money have reached the schools, we're not allowed to say, see, they didn't need it. No, we have to say we created by a bureaucracy that just prevented schools from entering the modern age. And so I think we need a anti-bureaucracy law saying that every new law we make is not allowed to be so complex that it actually never hits reality.
Shall we add this as a third tangible thing?
Yes, please.
An anti-bureaucracy law. I like that very much.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now that is easy for us. Like, so far we make demands to politics, to the government. Now, in the spirit of this event, in the whole dissent topic, if we look at the audience here, who are all working mostly not in politics but in digital companies, what's your demand to them, to us? What do we have to do to strengthen these two areas?
I would go beyond those two areas, because education, of course, you can train your people, but that is something which, in my case, directly goes to kids. I mean, we have companies like No Unity here on stage today. They do a great job at digitalizing education. But I would say we can do three things. The first thing, I mean, politics hasn't done the best job at creating a stock option program that actually works as well as in other countries. Nevertheless, companies here are doing it. Personio has every single person in the company is part of the success. And so it is possible, and in my eyes that has to be the way forward, that if companies grow to become very big or even unicorns, then many have to benefit from it. This is why the Silicon Valley ecosystem became so big, because a Twitter IPO actually made 44 millionaires and not 4. And we need this spread of wealth, because in my eyes, venture capital is a democratization of wealth. You don't
or
have...
Can be,
nobody asks who are your parents to give you venture capital. Everyone just looks at you as the founder or the female founder. So that's one, kind of bring your people into the success. The second thing is companies with a purpose and with a clear North Star will have it much easier to attract talent in the future. And you can see it with companies like Planetly or Personio, or the company my husband founded, Termondo, who are driving climate or the heat change. If you feel like I'm doing something beyond getting money here and beyond growing, and that it actually solves a society purpose, that is more and more important. And to be very blunt, what's happening with Gorillas and Flink is for me not the thing that we should be talking about right now. Companies where the people just refuse to do their job because they say this is not the working conditions. And I feel that we as a startup scene, we have to be we have to be kind of on top of the wave. It would be really bad if we would turn back things that the old economy has long already established. And the third thing is, where are the women? 15% female founders, hardly any women on the top level of the startups. The new 5 startups that entered the DAX actually brought down the female level at board level. I mean, really? We know that diversity works. We grew up with it. I mean, I'm the oldest here in the room, but everyone... Well, you're even older, okay, good. But everyone below 40 knows that it's not the time anymore to have homogeneous teams, and we're just not doing it. And that's the third thing which we should live up to.
So now, if I understand it right, you're basically saying it's good for startups to go into purpose topics themselves. That's something they can do.
But for profit.
But for profit.
Yeah.
A very interesting talk with Anna Alex about that. Who's exactly this for profit, for purpose approach. Then the second thing is we should work also against inequality and spread the wealth that this industry creates among the people who are actually building it. And diversity is an important topic also to
It's not a nice to have.
Yeah, it's not a nice to have, but something that has to be fostered also on VC level. Now let's think about the very, very early stage companies. Imagine you are NoUnity, for example. Okay, NoUnity is probably strong in the purpose area, but like you are some startup and you don't happen to... Your idea is a great idea, you want to work on that, but it's not a purpose, it's not a specific purpose topic. And you don't have product market fit yet, you are very early, you still try to get the money from the VCs in order to make the next and the second next step. What do you think should we expect even from them?
Well, first of all, I have a lot of sympathy for this early phase that you have to focus. You can't do it all right in the first meters of the marathon you're going to run, because if you don't focus, you will never reach kilometer 4, 5, 6. So there's no point in saying it has to be diverse, it has to be purpose, it has to be this, that, and then in the end the founder hasn't got a single euro of revenue. But what you can do, and I always call it, write the equity story backwards. If you found a company, then ask yourself, what's my plan? Is it to have a cash flow positive business where I only need a little bit of funding at the start to get it going? But ideally, I would like to do this for 30 years. Then don't take on so much venture capital in minute 1, because you will never ever reach this independence which you're aiming for. If you're in a high growth market, then don't take too little venture capital at the beginning, because you think like bootstrapping, I heard, is cool and you should do it for 4 or 5 years. No, you shouldn't. If you're in a business model that will only show the hockey stick or the proof of concept when entering the growth phase. But obviously don't just give away equity if you don't need the money, but raise more than you think, because I've never seen startups that have a high growth that had too much money. And the third thing is, with this equity story writing backwards, who are the people on the investor side you really want to work with long term? Because if you join a No Unity as Project A, he will have you in the cap table basically forever, until he exits, or if he doesn't, then probably he still has you in the cap table and you're not very happy. So choose wisely who you want to work with, and the early phase sometimes has the problem that you have to go with someone because you don't have enough traction yet. And I've just seen too many startups fail because they didn't choose the investors they really wanted long term. And so don't run into this rat race of I have to raise now because all my colleagues from WHU are doing it too. Rather rethink, can I then extend the bootstrapping phase till I might have better KPIs and maybe have more choice of who my investor could be.
But you're not saying it was wrong of No Unity?
No, it was the best decision to take you on board.
Thank you very much. I think we have 2 minutes time for some Q&A. And as this is a fully hybrid event, you here on site might have questions, but I'm looking to Pepe. Do we have any questions through the online community? Your microphone is not working.
Yeah, but it's okay.
Now
it's working. Okay, there are actually a couple of questions. I'll try to be quick. So the first one is to Verena. Which way is best for you to change mindsets?
Walk the talk. I think you can give speeches and you can tell people what they should be doing, but if you don't really execute yourself, people will think like maybe she gets a fee for speaking all the time, or maybe she's bored or whatever. Yeah. But if you kind of organize a hackathon where 10,000 people involve in the education of tomorrow, or we change the law so that board members can actually take a parental leave. Yeah. I think if you kind of show, look, I really mean it, then people will follow and kind of minds will open and say, maybe it's the way forward.
Okay, thank you so much. Then the second question is, what does your own kids' curriculum in terms of digital education look like?
It looks like, as I just said backstage, to have strong rules on the consumption side and give them a long leash on the creation side. So last night my one son was doing these bottle flips and making a video with special effects and music. It was pretty annoying for the rest of us because it was so loud, but I didn't limit the time. I didn't say you're allowed to do this video now for 20 minutes and then you hand in your device. I said, like, I want to see the result, but if you do it for 1.5 or 2 hours, I don't care. So if they're creating something in Minecraft, if they're coding something, if they're doing bottle flip videos, then for me that is the same as playing Lego when I was a kid. If they're sitting there playing Fortnite or watching other gamers on Discord playing stupid games, then we have screen time.
Okay, very good. We have only a few seconds left, so maybe a quick one. Would you ever go into politics yourself?
If it wasn't so toxic, I probably would, because I would say, like, you have to walk the talk. You can't talk about politics all day and then not do it. But I have huge respect what it does to a family and to a co-founder couple, in the sense of my husband also being an entrepreneur. It hasn't really inspired me, let's say it this way, the election campaign of the last month, to see that you can actually stay human and enter politics. Maybe if there's a sign of that, I'll rethink.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rainer and Verena.